My name is Mark Wyatt, and welcome to Legal Day TV and the Leadership Series. I'm pleased to say today we're joined by Tom Kilroy, GC and Company Secretary of the FTSE 250 firm misys. Welcome, Tom. You recently joined Procurement.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, and we've had our first matter on Procurement.
Right, talk me through the reasons for deciding to use Procurement in the first instance.
Well, it was recommended to me. I was at a conference and somebody said to me, you should give this a try because there's something in this and it's worth having a look at. So I came back to the office and thought, right, we'll actually set about looking into it, and I picked up a flyer or something about it. And then we were probably slower off the mark than we should have been. You know what it's like, you get distracted by other things. And but then we had a particular project in mind that we thought it would be suitable for us to trial. And that was a project in the employment area in terms of standardising our employment contracts worldwide. And there are about 15 jurisdictions in which most of our people are employed.
So in terms of the way that you decided to use Procureur in the particular case that you put through Procureur in the beginning, what was the thinking process of what sort of matters would be appropriate for it?
Well, in fact, our thinking has developed on this as we've gone along. To start with, our idea was that it really probably needed to be multi-jurisdictional and possibly so many countries at once. And obviously it needed to be definable as a sort of fixed set of activity. We didn't think it was suitable for going on there and saying, could you begin a negotiation with X, and we don't know how long it's going to take or what it's going to involve. So we wanted something which we could describe as a complete project. And we wanted to start with a multi-jurisdictional one. Now we've since thought about this further, and actually we've decided that it's actually very useful for single jurisdiction projects as well, particularly the kinds of areas that we ourselves probably aren't going to handle in-house. And I'm thinking about real estate, which we do a lot of. Employment is a good example where often we lack the expertise in-house. We're looking for external capability, and we think we can pin down exactly what it is that we want doing. And we believe then it gives you a real chance to put law firms up to bid in a Dutch auction effectively against each other. And the nice thing about it is it's quite simple to use, and it's very easy to compare apples and apples because you can see what it is and whether or not the law firm has actually offered to do the job that you've asked them to do.
And one of the things I was, again, chatting to a general counsel at a bank, one of the things that they were particularly frustrated about was the whole beauty parade process, the amount of time that is spent with law firms spending longer discussing the colour of a brochure as opposed to the content and who's actually going to be doing the work. And it's, I think, quite hard for a GC to make comparisons because the information provided by the law firms in a lot of different formats. Have you found that?
Yes, absolutely. And of course, people tend to put their own marketing envelope around the core information they're really trying to give you. And the nice thing about the Procure Law output, and we had more than 35 firms actually bid for the work, was that you can compare them like for like, and the marketing wraparound is stripped away. You get to the core question of what are they going to do and for what price. And it was therefore quite easy for me to convene the key decision makers in the department, and we sat in a room, we'd all pre-read the submissions that had come back, and were then able to go through them and decide how to score them on each of the different elements. Now we did the scoring reasonably informally, but the nice thing was that, so we were able to start with all of them, quickly whittle out the ones that really weren't in contention, get down to a core group, and then start looking quite seriously at how those had come out. And eventually we placed 4 finalists and 1 winner. And the great thing is that each of the submissions is identical in look and feel. And that makes it very easy to say, right, now I'm down to these 4. If I look at them and I look at the elements we were asking for, how do they compare? And you're not getting through a lot of marketing guff to get that.
How much time do you think, if you look at the process the way that it occurred through the Procure Law system and the way traditionally it would have been handled, how much time do you think you personally save for you and your department?
A lot. I mean, I think the setup of persuading the law firms, or not persuading them, but getting the law firms up on the system took some time, because it's not difficult to do, but you've got to write to them all, explain to them what you're doing, get them to sign up for the system. They needed a little bit of technical help. They were soon on board. But then I think I saved enormous amounts of time. But the moments when I think I was most involved were the definition of the RFP, of course, the persuasion of 1 or 2 firms who were confused and a little bit reluctant to get on board. Then at the time we received the submissions, the answering of some questions which arose during the process, and then the review of the submissions when they came back. But actually, from my point of view, compared to a beauty parade, and I have been through a lot of those, in particularly previous employers, I think it's just a better use of time for the law firm and a better use of time for us.
I guess the time that the law firm spends on a beauty parade has to be recouped somewhere along the lines as well.
Yeah.
And if efficiencies can be saved, that would reduce the burden of them to recoup them, I suppose.
I totally agree. And I think it's easy to underestimate the amount of time law firms and those sitting through beauty parades have to. It's an enormously time-consuming process. The nice thing about this is it's going on over a period of time. So if you open a window in which, for people to respond of maybe a week or whatever, during that time the responses are coming in. You don't need to address them as they arrive. You can then review them all in one go, literally all in one go, when they're all in and the submissions are closed. So it's actually very manageable. The online format of it makes it very manageable.
And the technology was easy to use?
Very easy, web-based, honestly, really straightforward. All the sort of menus that you'd expect to see, simple to enter the text, and therefore, a clean look and feel. Not difficult at all.
And you mentioned that the law firms that use it, there was a little bit of pushback initially. Do you think that was because people were slightly scared of the mystery being taken away from law?
Yes,
or do you think
I don't think they will. If I'm honest with you, I think it goes to the heart of the billing model, which is this would change the nature of some kinds of legal procurement. Essentially, I think if you have a very, very large contract, and you're in any company with a sizable procurement function, you can set the procurement guys to work to do this kind of thing. The challenge comes that when it's not at the sort of 2 or 3, 400,000, £1 million mark, and they're busy buying computers, whatever it is they're doing that week, and you're procuring legal services that might run up to £100,000 or whatever for any particular company, and it just isn't going to be big enough to get onto the radar. This gives the legal team a way to be satisfied that it's getting good value for money in price comparisons, really from quite small numbers upwards. You could use it for really relatively low value work.
Yeah, I mean, what has also been said is that the procurement system enables people to have an audit trail. I was talking to a general counsel at a Japanese bank, and he was saying that he actually hires Big Four accountancy firm to audit how he spends his budget, demonstrate he's adding value to the company. Whereas it would seem this system takes care of that and shows that you're buying effectively and efficiently.
Well, it does. It gives you a record of how you chose on price and how you factored in other elements. Now, we didn't choose the absolutely cheapest quote. We chose probably the second or third cheapest, but we didn't use price as the only criteria. We also were looking at capability, the knowledge of the company and the knowledge of the sector, a number of things like that. But I can tell you honestly that we had a 400% difference between the 400% difference between the top of the range and the level that we chose.
For a pretty similar offering, technically, and
very similar firms, very similar offering, similar coverage, similar project management offered, which is enormously surprising. It's a massive divergence.
It's a particularly scary number. I have to say, 400% is truly remarkable.
It's like driving down the high street and seeing, BP on one side and SL on the other. One of them at £1.50 and the other one at £5. I mean, it's that different.
It's interesting as well that you made the point about procurement departments. Of course, the thing about law, possibly more than any other item, is it is based, as you were saying eloquently earlier, was that it's based on value, not simply price. It's not a commoditized item.
Yeah, quite.
And so having a system like Procureur, where you can establish value, would, I think, add quite a lot of value.
I think that's right. I think the main thing is you don't have to give up control of it from the legal department. You actually control it yourself. And I've been in companies where we've gone for panel systems and procurement have effectively run the process. And although the thing it doesn't take into account, which almost all lawyers will grumble about, is the personal element of the relationship, in the sense that you are buying the advice of a particular person who you have high regard for. And maybe if it's a difficult and pressurized situation such as litigation, you want that person to be on your side because essentially you're putting a chunk of the company at risk. Same with large deals. I think the nice thing about this is the control of the thing remains in the function. You're not giving it away to somebody else who doesn't have an insight into how have we actually experienced the lawyers who are submitting these things. So all of the law firms we used were firms that the the company already has relationships with. So we know all of them in one way or another, better or some better than others. But we wanted to factor that element in when we were making the decision. And some of that, of course, is necessarily subjective.
Yes, yeah. But I think the procureur system has a system where you're able to evaluate each element and stream and prioritise the particular aspects of the law firm offering according to your own preferences.
You can set up the criteria and make it explicit those things in advance, yes. And we will definitely be using it again. I mean, we already have a second project lined up, which is quite similar to the first one. It's a multi-jurisdiction one, around about 15 countries again. But we're at the moment trying to populate it from our point of view with additional firms in specific locations. So, for example, in Hong Kong, in Singapore, so that we've got at least 3 firms in each location in Dubai, that if we have a matter that we want to go out and we think is suitable, the person locally, the lawyer on the ground in that particular jurisdiction, can, we believe, with quite minimal training, set it up, send it out, and a week later be sitting on comparative quotes. And you can do that as fast or as you like. You can set up the timelines yourself. And I think there's a real opportunity. And I can give you examples. We have just concluded an employment matter in Taiwan. We ended up spending quite a bit on outside counsel advice, but we didn't have any comparative quotes. And you could have scoped that in advance if you'd have had the tools in your hand to do it. And so the alternative to that is, of course, the manual system of writing or calling a number of different law firms, explaining the matter to them. Everybody's going to get a slightly different explanation, send a slightly different submission back, and that's enormously time-consuming. And realistically, busy lawyers in the field don't really have time for that kind of thing.
But also the ability, if a particular law firm has a question and that question is valid and needs to be communicated to other people on the panel, that would again involve 30 other conversations.
Yes, and that's a nice thing. You can publicise information through the system to everybody all at once, and it's the equivalent of just one message. And they don't see who everybody else is, which is important as well. So, yeah, I think that aspect of it just makes it very easy to use.
And talking about, in particular, the matter that you mentioned, was the law firm that you instructed a surprise? Did you think at the beginning of the process that the firm that you mentioned you instructed was going to be the firm that would be the likely winner of the process?
Well, it's interesting. They're a firm we have a strong relationship already with in that space. So would I say I was surprised? No, I don't think I was surprised. So it wasn't an absolutely revolutionary experience in that sense. But in a way, that's good, because what I think I got was a good price from a firm that I would like to use for that kind of work. And I'm confident that comparatively to other firms that I could have used, we did well. And that's important for me, because it goes back to that point about explaining to people, including finance, that you're using your budget responsibly and you're thinking hard about whether you get value for money.
And do you think, in terms of the way that you use the system, did you, out of interest, did you negotiate through the process, or did you rely on the best price at the beginning? Did firms negotiate with you during the process? Did you use the process?
No, we didn't. We decided we'd let people make a submission. Essentially, one or two out of the 15 countries, one or two firms. Some firms only bid one country. Some bid the entire thing. And what we asked everybody to do was bid as many as you can, so that we could have as few providers as possible. And we didn't then haggle or negotiate. We could have done, of course. If we'd have felt that none of the prices were acceptable, I think we probably would have done. But we had meaningful price differences to choose from. And so it was reassuring, because I feel like we're getting quality service from a firm that I like and trust, but I feel confident that they felt the need to give us a good price, and that I know they did, because I can compare it with other people.
And do you think it was the fact that they were on the system that encouraged them to be fairer, should we use that word?
I think so. And not just them, I think many of the participants, exactly that. It puts you on your, you've got to be thinking hard about whether or not you're pricing it well. So that's really going to be, because you know that that's going to be a major element of what the client is looking at, of course, with the other elements. So I really do think it put them on the nettle on that.
And another thing that was mentioned to me at a conference was that quite a few GCs get slightly frustrated when the people that come along on the beauty parade to do and show that they are the public face of the firm have nothing to do with the legal work thereafter.
Yes.
Whereas, of course, with the procureur system, they're specifying who's going to be doing the work.
That's right.
And it's pretty obvious that if they're not doing it. Did you find that a factor?
Yes, we did, and we took that into account. I mean, that's the old thing that you know who you want, or at least you know who you want to be sufficiently close to it that they actually know what's going on. Mm-hmm. You don't just want a name waved at you or somebody who's fantastically good at pitching and presenting. And it does remove that element, of course, from the proposal. It is a written proposal. Mm-hmm. You don't get, there isn't a variability factor for just how good is someone standing on their feet in front of a PowerPoint page and telling you about how great they are. Mm-hmm. So you remove that from the equation.
Thank you, Tom. Tom Kilroy, General Counsel and Company Secretary at misys.